Seattle woke up slowly that morning. A thin silver mist clung to the waterfront, drifting around the towers like a living thing. I reached Resonance Studios at 6:30 a.m., same as I had for the past 18 years. I unlocked the glass doors, hit the lights, checked the boards, and did the morning walker round. This routine wasn't just habit, it was part of my identity. For nearly 2 decades, I had given this studio everything. My early mornings, my late nights, my skills, my patience, my loyalty. Back in 2007, when Resonance was still running outdated gear, I was the one who rebuilt the place from the ground up. I had spent 5 years upgrading equipment, modernizing workflows, and elevating the studio's status. After that, I trained new staff, managed tricky clients, handled live sessions, and solved technical crises like a firefighter who never slept. My job wasn't just a job, it was who I was, and that's why everything that happened next cut so deeply. By noon that day, the air inside the studio felt heavier than usual. My colleague Toti arrived later in the morning. Over the years, he and I had built a solid working relationship, mostly respectful, sometimes collaborative, always professional. But recently, things had started to shift around here. There was a tremor in the air, the kind you feel before an earthquake hits. There were rumors, quiet conversations, sudden meetings behind doors that weren't usually closed, people looking at each other a little too carefully. And the biggest talk in the building, layoffs. No one said the word out loud, but everyone carried it in their eyes. I tried to focus on work and ignore the tension. I ran cables, calibrated mics, checked the rooms, and kept everything running smoothly. Even then, something felt wrong. It was like the building itself knew something I didn't. Toti called me into Studio B. I assumed it was for troubleshooting, but when I stepped in, I saw something I didn't expect. He was with one of the senior engineers, whispering in low voices. Their conversation stopped the second I walked in. The silence said more than their words ever could. I asked what was going on. They brushed it off. Nothing important. There was a stiffness in the air, a rehearsed casualness. That was the moment I first felt the shift, subtle, sharp, wrong. Later that afternoon, while I was adjusting the console in Studio A, Toti stood behind me and said something that froze me completely. Things are changing around here. People who don't evolve get left behind. His tone wasn't a warning. It was a message, and I understood it, but I didn't respond. I kept working, pretending not to feel the cold undercurrent in his words. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I had been here longer than most of the leadership team. I knew every inch of this place. Why would I be worried? But deep down, a knot had already formed in my stomach. The next morning, the mist was heavier, almost too thick to see the street. I arrived early again, unlocked the door, powered up the studios, and pretended the building didn't feel different now. I could sense a distance forming between me and people who used to treat me with warmth. Toti's sudden friendliness toward certain managers, the whispers that stopped whenever I approached the way my name appeared less and less on the important schedules, the signs were there. I just didn't want to read them. Around 3 p.m., the studio manager called me into her office. My heart dropped instantly. She wasn't someone who called people in without reason. When I entered, her posture was stiff. Her face was unreadable. Close the door. That sentence rang in my ears like a siren. She slid a paper toward me. A short letter printed in corporate language that tried too hard to sound kind. Restructuring, budget adjustments, new direction. And then the line that stole 18 years of loyalty in a single breath. Your position will be discontinued effective immediately. I stared at her. For a moment, the room felt unreal, like a dream I was watching from outside my body. What did I do wrong? I asked. She shook her head. It's not about performance. Of course it wasn't. That's what they always say. I walked out of that office numb, but as I packed my things, that numbness slowly sharpened. It wasn't sadness, it was something far more painful. When I stepped into Studio B to grab my headphones, Toady was there, arms crossed, leaning against the console. He gave me a look, a mix of victory and false sympathy. So you're leaving? Leaving? No, I was being removed. And he knew it. I didn't know they'd do this, he said, but the smirk hiding under his words betrayed him. I realized everything at once, the whispers, the sudden shifts, the closed doors, the rehearsed conversations. The warnings disguised as advice. He had known. He had been part of it. He had wanted this seat, and now he had it. I walked out of the studio carrying 18 years of my life in a cardboard box. The mist outside had finally lifted, but inside me, a storm was just beginning.